name is TJ Scott. This is my Chapter 13 Business Law video summary. Chapter 13 was on law of property, real and personal. Um, Everything that has to do with property, from the original contracts, how they are constructed, to even things that can be additions, which the homework dives into a little bit, different additions that you can make to property, whether or not it's legal or not. There's a lot of things throughout this chapter. I didn't really realize how important they were when it comes to different property agreements and things like that. There's a lot of different rules you have to follow in accordance with whatever contract you might be under, whatever contract might be binding between a company and you, whether that be in a business or even personal property, as this chapter also goes into personal property as well, because personal property is also extremely important, and it can delve right into your business property as well. So going right into things. Property is a bundle of rights in relation to others to possess, use, and dispose. Uh, Property itself is basically, whether it be an object, a piece of property, um, like facilities, and then even personal property. Like this, it didn't go into this very much, but it is a discussion that needs to be important. Whether or not it's touched on a lot is an idea. Is also property. Different ideas can be property based on what you may do to make them your own personal property, your own personal idea. Um, Real property is land and everything permanently attached to it, so items that, if removed, would cause damage to the property are considered attached. This is complicated to me because I wonder what permanent attachment is. I feel like that's something that could be jeopardized or something that could be, I guess, argued. For example, having a string attached from your house all the way to your shed, does that make the shed permanent property? Different things like that. But essentially, that is the land a facility, business, or house is on. Extent of ownership: physical components surrounding land that are entitled to the owner and include the airspace above the land, water rights, and mineral rights. Mineral rights is interesting to me. I didn't really look too far into it, but it's something, if you're on the county's property but you own it privately, mineral rights wise, what happens if you do dig and you do find something like that? Airspace above the land. This is curious to me when it comes to private laws, because drones are becoming popular now, whether that be commercial or people's private drones, different things like that. They're fine for fun. The airspace above your house, how far does that go? What are people allowed to do in that airspace above your house? These are questions that are going to be raised in the future, and questions, I think, that are going to be argued for the next couple decades, and eventually we'll probably get some answers. But different things like that are just interesting to me throughout the chapter. It makes it easier for me to understand it and also kind of dive deeper into the rights and laws of property. Okay, so estates and land. Basically, what comes to mind when I think about this, estates and land, is what's in somebody's will, what are you owed, what are you guaranteed, why do you own this piece of property, things like that. And I think what it really comes down to, and what a lot of this chapter comes down to, is contracts. What is truly in the contract, what's identified in the contract, and what can you utilize throughout it. Leasehold and easement. I think a lot of businesses today are using leases, just with the owner of maybe a strip mall or anything, and you're leasing the building from them. You're paying the bill to them. I think this is something that a lot of people in the class, even myself, are going to need to understand, because there are a lot of building owners out there. It's very unlikely that you will become one when it comes to facilities in the business world, and you're going to be able to work out a lease agreement, and you're going to have to work hand in hand with the owner of the building pretty much 24/7 on different things like, how are we taking care of utilities, to, if an issue arises, how are we going to address it. License of co-ownership, license temporary right to be on someone else's property. I don't really know what this could mean. To me, that kind of means construction licenses. Basically, you are allowed to enter the property, you're allowed to deal with something that needs addressed. Joint ownership is pretty self-explanatory. Um, it kind of jumps in the chapter to very specific property rights, whether that be apartments, condominiums, strip malls, things like that, that each have their very specific details. Each have very identifiable clauses within them that have to deal directly with that type of building or that type of construction. Um, Zoning is also touched on government restrictions placed on the use of private property. Basically, this is to protect the community around them. I don't think a lot of people understand zoning laws. I'm not saying I understand zoning laws whatsoever, but it is something important. It matters a lot to our government, and it also matters to the people within the community. These zoning laws are put into place for a reason. And I think a lot of companies, specifically in this area, have a lot of issues with zoning laws because they come in, they want to take care of factory needs and different necessities that they have to basically demolish land to add employment, and then from there on develop a company that might be against zoning laws in the community, strictly because the people of Defiance, for example, want to keep this place clean, safe, and healthy. Um, from then on, there was a couple personal property, and then basically private and public property colliding precedent cases that uh, basically ends up that the community wins when it comes to public versus private property, whether or not it's private property or not. Breaking the law is breaking the law, and the public demands basically repercussions for that. From there on, it was a lot of personal property things, as I touched on briefly, whether that be copyright laws or even your own idea on things. This chapter, I think, is really important when it comes to owning your own business, working within a business, or if you're even working in this type of field, where you have to deal with all these different laws, these regulations. It's something that you need to understand. You know, I rent a house right now, and understanding that contract is important to me and all my roommates. Understanding who's reliable for what. If something needs to be fixed, do we need to take care of it? Somebody else needs to take care of it. These are all important things when it comes down to the facility of an office. Thank you.